Ma'am! I didn't steal this money, please. Just let me open my account, whispered little Kayla Thompson, her voice trembling as she clutched the envelope of birthday cash in her shaking hands. 13-year-old Kayla stood at the pristine customer service counter of Liberty First Bank, her school uniform crisp against her thin shoulders. Her eyes darted nervously around the bustling lobby, catching glimpses of suited professionals and elderly clients reading brochures under golden lamps. But her world narrowed to the cold stare of Barbara Jenkins, the teller behind the polished glass. Barbara's lip curled in disgust as she leaned forward and hissed, "A girl like you walking in here with $800 in cash. Who'd you rob, sweetheart?" The words stung like a slap across Kayla's face. This was supposed to be a proud day, her first checking account proof to her mother that she was responsible enough to manage her savings. She had practiced her greeting and memorized the banking terms she had read online for weeks. But now her confidence was crumbling under Barbara's glare. Fighting back tears, Kayla forced out, "Please let me call my mom. She'll explain everything." Barbara's smirk deepened as she snatched the phone to dial security, thinking only of her prejudices while ignoring the quiet dignity of the little girl before her. In that moment, Kayla felt her chest tighten with dread, unaware her entire life was about to change, all because of a bank manager's cruel assumptions. Kayla Thompson's heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear anything else in that marble-floored bank lobby. Her fingers clutched the envelope tighter as Barbara Jenkins, the teller, leaned back in her leather swivel chair, shaking her head with a disgusted chuckle. "Save your sob story for the cops, kid," she muttered under her breath. Before Kayla could say another word, Barbara turned in her chair, her silver name badge catching the afternoon light, and called out to the manager across the room. "Sandra, we've got a situation here. Better come take care of this one." The woman who approached was tall with sharp features and icy blue eyes that flickered with annoyance even before she reached the counter. Her high heels clicked across the glossy tile like gunshots in Kayla's ears. "What is it this time?" Sandra Whitaker, branch manager of Liberty First Bank, asked, briskly, eyes flicking over the trembling girl in front of her. "This kid," Barbara said with a smirk, "claims she wants to open an account with all this cash. Says it's her birthday money. I told her we don't play games here." Sandra crossed her arms, her pearl bracelet jangling lightly as she examined Kayla with a stare that felt like being stripped bare. "How old are you?" she asked curtly. 13, ma'am," Kayla stammered. "I brought my school ID, my birth certificate, and my savings statements. I've been saving for this for months." Her voice trailed off as Sandra's lips curled into a humorless smile. "That's a lot of money for a child," Sandra said, nodding to Barbara. "Call security. Actually, no, call the police. I'm not about to let some little scam artist launder stolen cash in my branch today." Kayla's chest tightened, as if someone had wrapped a steel band around her ribs. "Please, ma'am, it's not stolen. It's from my grandma for my birthday. I saved it. Please just let me call my mom." But Sandra was already shaking her head, a flicker of cruel satisfaction flashing across her face. "You think I'm stupid," she sneered. "Your mom probably sent you here to do her dirty work. I've worked in banking 20 years, and let me tell you, girls like you don't just walk in with this kind of money unless it's dirty." The words "girls like you" echoed in Kayla's mind, each syllable pounding against her temples with growing fear and confusion. She didn't fully understand what Sandra meant, but the venom in her tone told her everything. Around them, the bank lobby had grown quiet. Businessmen checking their accounts paused mid-sentence. An older woman waiting for her teller appointment clutched her handbag tighter, looking on with concern. But no one spoke up. No one intervened. Kayla felt tears welling in her eyes, blurring the polished counter and sterile computer screens before her. She tried to swallow the rising sob in her throat as Barbara picked up the phone, her long manicured nails tapping the keypad with mechanical precision. Yes, this is Liberty First Bank on Main Street, Barbara said crisply into the receiver. We have a suspicious miner here attempting to deposit what we believe is stolen cash. Please send an officer immediately. Kayla's knees felt weak as her vision swam with terror. Her mother's words from breakfast that morning flashed through her mind. I'm so proud of you, baby. Go show them what a strong, smart young woman you are. But standing there under the fluorescent lights, feeling smaller than she ever had before, Kayla wondered if her mom's faith was misplaced, if there was something wrong with her that she couldn't see. As Barbara hung up the phone, and Sandra crossed her arms with a triumphant smirk, Kayla felt a single tear roll down her cheek, tasting of salt and humiliation. Little did they know the woman they were about to call was the last person they should ever underestimate. Outside Liberty First Bank, the summer sun glared down on the quiet suburban street. But inside the fluorescent lights seemed even harsher as Kayla Thompson stood frozen in fear. Her tear-streaked face tilted downward, eyes locked on her scuffed white sneakers as Sandra Whitaker, the manager, and Barbara Jenkins, the teller, whispered to each other with triumphant smirks. She's scared now, Barbara murmured under her breath, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Sandra folded her arms, leaning against the counter with the smug posture of someone who thought they'd just protected their kingdom from an intruder. Neither woman noticed Kayla's trembling fingers slipping into her backpack, fumbling for her phone. With her heart hammering against her ribs, Kayla pulled out the slim pink phone her mom had given her for her birthday last year. Her vision blurred with tears as she typed as fast as she could. Mom. I'm at the bank. The manager called the cops on me. She says my money is stolen. Please come now. I'm scared. She pressed send just as Sandra's sharp voice snapped, "Give me that phone!" The woman lunged forward, grabbing at Kayla's wrist, but the message had already flown across the city, bouncing off cell towers and landing with a quiet buzz in a boardroom that was anything but quiet. Miles away, on the 42nd floor of Thompson Financial Group, Amelia Thompson sat at the head of a sleek mahogany table, her fitted navy suit impeccable, her hair in a low chignon, eyes narrowed at the quarterly projections glowing on the wall screen. Around her sat 5 of the state's top financial executives, each one shifting uncomfortably as Amelia's laser-focused gaze flicked over the numbers. Revenue is up, but customer retention in the eastern districts is dropping, she said, in her calm, commanding voice. Before anyone could respond, her phone buzzed beside her glass water bottle. Amelia rarely checked personal texts during meetings, but when she glanced down and saw her daughter's name, a chill ran through her chest. Reading Kayla's message felt like time froze. The words blurred for a split second before her mind snapped back into motion, her instincts sharper than any business negotiation she'd ever handled. Her fingers tightened around the phone as an expression passed over her face that made every executive in the room lean back instinctively. Confusion first, then shock, and finally an icy, deadly calm that seemed to lower the temperature in the entire boardroom. "Gentlemen," she said, her voice so soft it was almost a whisper, yet filled with lethal authority. "This meeting is over. Someone just made a very expensive mistake." She stood so abruptly that her leather chair rolled back and hit the wall. The executives glanced at each other nervously, each man suddenly aware that whoever had crossed Amelia Thompson today had no idea who they were dealing with. As she strode to the glass doors, her assistant hurried after, her tablet clutched to her chest. "Mrs. Thompson, should I reschedule your afternoon acquisitions call with Eastbridge Holdings?" Amelia didn't even slow her stride. "Clear my schedule," she ordered, her heels clicking like gunshots across the polished stone floor. With one hand, she was already dialing her attorney, her head of security, and finally her personal driver. "Jasmine," she said as the line clicked, "bring the car around. We're going to Liberty First Bank. Now." In the boardroom behind her, the executives sat in stunned silence, the numbers on the projector forgotten. Each of them understood that Amelia Thompson's power wasn't just in her billions. It was in the way she carried herself, like a storm contained within a single woman. And today, that storm was heading straight for the small bank on Main Street, where Sandra Whitaker and Barbara Jenkins were about to discover exactly who they had dared to humiliate. Kayla Thompson sat on the cold metal bench in the corner of Liberty First Bank, her small shoulders shaking with each quiet sob. 2 uniformed officers had arrived minutes ago, called in by Sandra Whitaker, who stood smugly by the counter with Barbara Jenkins at her side. The officers Sergeant Mark Reynolds, a gruff man with a thinning hairline, and Officer Carla Diaz, a young woman with tired eyes, approached with the practiced indifference of people who believed they had seen it all. "What's the problem here?" Sergeant Reynolds asked, flipping open his notepad without looking at Kayla. "This girl came in trying to open an account with stolen money," Sandra declared, her voice dripping with self-righteous satisfaction. "She refused to tell us where she got it. It's obviously fraud." Kayla tried to speak, her voice cracking with desperation. "Please, it's my birthday money. My mom, she's coming." But Officer Diaz barely glanced at her before reaching for her handcuffs. "Stand up, sweetie," Diaz said flatly. "We're taking you down to the station. You can explain it all there." The cold steel of the cuffs bit into Kayla's wrists as she whimpered softly, the sound barely reaching Sandra or Barbara over their triumphant whispers. Finally, Barbara muttered under her breath, "These kids think they can get away with anything." As the officers turned to lead Kayla away, the glass doors at the front of the bank swung open with a sharp hiss of hydraulics. Sunlight streamed into the sterile lobby, framing the tall, elegant silhouette of Amelia Thompson as she strode inside. She wore a fitted black sheath dress that accentuated her powerful posture, her pearl earrings catching the afternoon light with each step. Behind her walked David Chen, her attorney, in a crisp gray suit, and Robert Lewis, her head of security, a towering man with a calm, watchful gaze. 2 additional guards in discreet black followed at a respectful distance. The hush that fell over the bank lobby was almost palpable. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Customers turned in their chairs to stare. The 2 officers froze in place, their hands still on Kayla's arms. Sandra blinked, confusion flickering across her face before her arrogance reasserted itself. "Can I help you, ma'am?" She called, her voice falsely sweet, failing to mask the faint tremor beneath. Amelia didn't respond immediately. She took 3 more steps, her heels tapping out a deliberate, menacing rhythm against the marble floor. Her gaze swept the lobby past the gawking customers, past Barbara and Sandra, and landed directly on Kayla, her daughter standing trembling in handcuffs, cheeks wet with tears. The sight struck Amelia's chest like a hammer, but her face remained composed, every muscle locked in controlled fury. Finally, her eyes shifted to Sandra. "Yes," Amelia said, her voice quiet, yet slicing through the silence like a blade. "You can start by unhanding my daughter, right now." Sandra opened her mouth to retort, but before she could utter a word, David Chen stepped forward, pulling a thick folder from his leather briefcase. "I would advise you to do as Mrs. Thompson says," he said smoothly. "Unless you'd prefer to explain your actions to the state attorney, the banking commission, and your own corporate board of directors this afternoon." Sergeant Reynolds cleared his throat, glancing nervously at Officer Diaz, who was already fumbling with her keys to remove Kayla's cuffs. Sandra's eyes darted between Amelia and the 2 imposing men flanking her. For the first time, uncertainty flickered behind her icy gaze as she realized that the woman before her wasn't merely another angry parent. She was someone whose power eclipsed everything Sandra thought she controlled. Kayla fell into her mother's arms, sobbing quietly as Amelia held her close. Over her daughter's shaking shoulders, Amelia's eyes locked onto Sandra's, cold and unblinking, as she whispered, "You have no idea what you've just done. But you're about to find out." The entire bank lobby fell into an uneasy, reverent silence as Amelia Thompson stood tall, her arms protectively wrapped around Kayla's trembling frame. For a moment, the fluorescent lights above seemed to flicker, casting Sandra Whitaker's pale face in stark relief. Amelia slowly released her daughter, smoothing Kayla's hair back, with a tenderness that made several onlookers avert their eyes. Then she turned to face Sandra fully, her expression transforming into a mask of icy authority. "Manager Whitaker." "Is it?" Amelia asked quietly, her voice calm, yet carrying an undercurrent of lethal force. Sandra straightened reflexively, the pearls at her throat rising and falling with each quick breath. "Yes, that's correct," she replied, her words catching slightly in her throat. Mrs. Thompson, your daughter was attempting to deposit funds we believed to be fraudulent. We were simply following protocol." Amelia's dark eyes narrowed slightly as she studied the woman before her. Without turning, she extended a hand behind her, and David Chen stepped forward, placing a heavy gold-embossed business card into her palm. With precise, deliberate movement, Amelia set it down on the marble counter between them. "Read it," she instructed softly. Sandra's eyes dropped to the card. Her pupils contracted as she read the words printed in crisp black serifs. Amelia Thompson, CEO, Thompson Financial Group, majority shareholder, Liberty First Bank. A faint gasp rose from Barbara Jenkins behind the counter, and even Officer Reynolds shifted uncomfortably on his feet. The realization washed over Sandra in slow, humiliating waves, draining the blood from her face. Her lips parted soundlessly. I didn't. I had no idea." "No." Amelia interrupted sharply, her gaze cutting into Sandra like sharpened glass. "You didn't care. That's the difference." She tilted her head slightly, her earrings glinting as her tone dropped lower. "You see a young black girl in her school uniform with birthday money from her grandmother, and instead of treating her with dignity, you treated her like a criminal. You humiliated her. You handcuffed her." Amelia's voice shook only once, the fury behind her composure bubbling through. "And you did all of this in a bank that my family's money built." The room felt as if the oxygen had been sucked out. A teller behind Barbara dropped her pen onto the counter with a soft clatter that sounded impossibly loud. Sandra swallowed, trying to regain her footing. We were just protecting the bank's interests, ma'am." Amelia's laugh was soft and mirthless. "Protecting the bank's interests?" She gestured around the polished lobby with one graceful sweep of her hand. "My daughter is the bank's interests. Every child who opens their first account, every parent who trusts us with their family's savings, they are the bank's interests. Not your prejudices, not your small, limited view of who deserves to be treated with respect." At that moment, the glass doors swung open again with a whoosh. A short, silver-haired man in an immaculate navy suit hurried in, flanked by two assistants. The golden Liberty First Bank lapel pin on his jacket gleamed under the recessed lights as he approached, eyes wide with panic. "Mrs. Thompson," he exclaimed, slightly out of breath. "I came as soon as I received your call." Amelia's gaze softened briefly as she turned to greet him. "Charles," she said evenly, "thank you for coming. We have a very serious problem here." Charles Morrison, chairman of Liberty First Bank, turned to Sandra, his expression darkening with disappointment and restrained rage. "Sandra, what have you done?" Sandra opened her mouth, desperate for words that would absolve her. But nothing came. Her eyes darted around the silent lobby, searching for an escape route that no longer existed. Because for the first time she understood that her career and her carefully curated life were crumbling before her eyes, all because she had underestimated the wrong child and her mother, the woman who held the power to dismantle everything she believed untouchable. Charles Morrison turned to Amelia with an expression that mixed dread and duty. "Mrs. Thompson?" He set his voice tight. I will handle this personally." He gestured to a security guard standing near the vault hallway. "Please escort Manager Whitaker to my office immediately." Sandra's knees almost buckled as she stepped out from behind the counter, her high heels clicking hollowly against the polished tile. Customers watched in stunned silence, their eyes following her, like a condemned prisoner walking to the gallows. She kept her chin lifted in desperate defiance, but the tremor in her lips betrayed her. As the security guard guided her away, Charles turned to Barbara Jenkins. "And you, go with her. Well, be reviewing every single one of your customer interactions since your hiring date." Barbara's face drained of color, and she stumbled forward, her eyes darting pleadingly to her fellow tellers, none of whom met her gaze. As they disappeared down the hallway, Amelia felt Kayla press closer against her side. The girl's tear-streaked face turned upward, confusion swirling in her wide brown eyes. "Mom, what's happening? Am I in trouble?" Amelia kneeled in front of her daughter, cupping her small, trembling hands. "No, baby," she whispered, her voice breaking with tenderness and rage entwined. "You did nothing wrong. Nothing. They're the ones who are in trouble. And I need you to always remember this: your worth does not come from the way people treat you. It comes from who you are." Kayla blinked at her mother's words, their gravity too large to fully grasp at 13. But she felt the truth of them settle warm in her chest, pushing back the cold fear that had wrapped around her like chains. Charles Morrison cleared his throat softly. "Mrs. Thompson, I've already called for our head of compliance. We'll launch a full internal investigation today. Every customer-facing employee will be retrained, and if I may speak plainly, I am deeply, deeply sorry for what happened to your daughter." Amelia rose to her full height, her hand still protectively holding Kayla's. "Thank you, Charles. But this isn't just about my daughter." Her voice, though calm, cut through the marble lobby like a blade. "This is about every child who walks into this bank. Every young Black or Hispanic teenager trying to learn financial responsibility only to be treated like a criminal for daring to save money. This ends today." "Yes, Mom," Charles said, bowing his head. Behind them, the two officers stood awkwardly near the door. Officer Diaz shifted her weight from foot to foot before speaking up, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mrs. Thompson, we didn't know. We were just following a call." Amelia turned her dark eyes, locking onto the officer with quiet fury. "And did you bother to ask her name? To read her documents? To call her parents before placing a child in handcuffs?" Officer Diaz's shoulders slumped. "No, Mom," she murmured. "Then you failed her?" Amelia said simply. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her words fell heavy as stone in the silent lobby. "You failed every child who will hear this story, and fear the people sworn to protect them." With that, Amelia turned back to Kayla, squeezing her hand softly. "Come on, sweetheart," she whispered. "Let's go home." But as they walked toward the doors, Kayla glanced over her shoulder one last time at the bank that had so casually tried to strip away her dignity. In that moment, something flickered in her eyes. Not just fear, but an ember of righteous anger burning quietly beneath the tears. An ember her mother would soon teach her to forge into a flame, strong enough to change everything. The sun was setting by the time Amelia and Kayla reached home. As they sat together on the edge of Kayla's bed, the golden light casting a quiet glow over the room's pastel walls and scattered textbooks, Amelia took her daughter's small hands into her own. "Baby," she whispered, brushing a tear from Kayla's cheek. "Today, you learned something painful, that sometimes people will judge you before they even know your name. But you also learned something powerful: you never have to accept it. You stand tall. You speak your truth. And you let the world adjust to your worth, not the other way around." Kayla nodded slowly, her eyes reflecting a newfound depth beyond her 13 years. Outside, cicadas hummed in the warm evening air, but inside an unspoken promise pulsed between mother and daughter that this would not break them, it would build them. In this world, people may underestimate you because of how you look, where you're from, or how young you are. But true power is knowing their assumptions do not define you. Your worth is rooted in who you are and how you rise, no matter how many times you're pushed down. If this story moved, you share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you or someone you love ever faced injustice like Kayla did? We read every word you write. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that remind us dignity, courage, and truth always win in the end.